the Global Child Forum, in partnership with the Boston Consulting Group, have published 6 benchmark studies on the regional and global level, focusing on the corporate sector and children's rights. We conduct this benchmark because facts are so important, and because children have rights. We want to understand where companies are today in their understanding of these rights. Now we are very happy to share the results from our South American benchmark study. You all have the report in your bags that you picked up this morning, so please take it home with you. How did we conduct our analysis? We screened 282 of the largest publicly listed South American companies. We assessed the companies against 7 indicators organized in 3 key areas: governance and operations, policies and reporting, and partnerships. Our indicators are based on the children's rights and business principles. Together, the indicators assess whether the company addresses children's rights. We do not measure performance. Using publicly available information, we are able to develop a score with a total achievable score of 9. Our first 2 indicators are weighted at 2 points each. What did we look for? For example, we looked for, does a company have a public statement or policy against child labor? Yes or no. We looked for whether the company's board is accountable or responsible for children's rights issues. Yes or no. We then send a scorecard to each of the companies and follow up with interviews. So how did the 282 companies score? You see here the average score in each industry sector and the cumulative average of all companies we assessed, which is 2.2. This average score is very similar to, but slightly higher than other regions we have assessed. For example, the Nordic region scored an average of 2 points. All of these details are in your report. 3 key findings from the South American assessment are that 8% of the companies have a board that is responsible for children's rights issues. This score is on par with other regions. 59% have a child labor policy in place, and 21% report on additional children's rights issues such as exploitation against children or product marketing. Let's look quickly at a few more comparisons with just a couple regions that we have assessed. You can see that this last indicator scores significantly higher than other regions. So why are additional children's rights issues so important? Many companies understand the need to prohibit child labor. Not as many consider additional issues or ways that their business operations can impact children. Unique for this region, we found that companies include family-friendly policies that Marta mentioned. 10% of those that we assessed, for example, provide for child care facilities and the ability for employees to work from home. Doug, let's look at some of the high-scoring companies.
All right, thank you, Fiona. So good morning, Your Majesties, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the numbers are clearly a bit lower than we would like them to be, obviously, but that doesn't mean that there are not a lot of companies already in the region that are doing a lot of positive things with respect to children's rights. Now, these are the companies which have scored highest in our study, which means by definition they are active in multiple dimensions of the ones that Fiona mentioned. There are, of course, many other companies. Our study is limited to publicly traded companies, so large privately held companies, small, medium companies, which clearly could be doing a lot of outstanding things, are not captured by our study. Let's talk through just a few examples, and then we're actually going to have representatives from some of these companies come up and talk in a bit more detail about their programs. So the first thing we look at is it starts at the board. So we really like to see companies that have officially incorporated children's rights as part of the mandate of the board. One such example is Grupo Telecom, Argentina. As a telecommunications company, the board has recognized that one of their top 10 material risks is ensuring a safe digital environment for children. And by signaling that to the company, then the company can work towards making the digital technology a positive force for children, also obviously protecting children, particularly important today given how much time our kids spend on the internet, on their mobile apps, etc. Second very important topic is we really want companies to think through their entire footprint, which often extends beyond their own doors, to their customers and clients, to their suppliers, to their supply chain. And one example of a company which has recognized that potentially the biggest risks are outside of their own company doors is Duratex, where the risk is probably more present with their suppliers in the logistics operations, particularly with respect to child labor, but also with respect to child prostitution. And so they've created a supplier management program where they engage each year with their suppliers. They educate, they monitor, they work so that their suppliers are also aware of and working in favor of children's rights. And then thirdly, another element which we like to see is we like to see the companies partnering, whether it be with nonprofit organizations that are specifically focused on children's rights, whether it's with the government. One such example, BCP from Peru. They created a program in combination with the education ministry where they trained professors, and those professors then trained students on basic financial concepts and personal finance. And I like this example for a number of reasons. First of all, because it shows the power of combining the private sector and the public sector, which inevitably means you can reach many more children. In this case, it went from a company to hundreds of professors to thousands of kids that learned about basic finance. The other reason I like about it is because it's about a positive agenda. This is not just about protecting against violations, but it's also thinking about what you can do to encourage positive development and proactive actions for children. And the third thing about this specific initiative is that, and this is really important, is that it's good for business. This is not about charity. This is not only about social responsibility, which is clearly important, but by training these young adults in basic financial concepts, they're going to end up being better clients for the bank in the future. So it all ties together. And maybe, Fiona, just a few reflections on the study before we turn to some of the companies we're going to talk more in detail. I think my reflection is that there's reason to be optimistic. The region scores higher than similar developing markets, which shows that there is significant awareness already of the importance of children's rights. But it's also clearly a provocation and an invitation to companies to think through what they could be doing both to protect children's rights, but also to take positive actions to help children prepare for the future.
Good. The only thing I would add just as a conclusion that we've discussed is, and you've touched on this, Doug, thank you, is really to get the message across that it's so important as companies to understand how children interact in your operations and your supply chain, and to hold your suppliers accountable. Code of ethics was mentioned, policies as well, and then partnering is so important. We've heard this a few times already this morning. So Don't take it alone. Partner with industry leaders, experts, or become an industry leader yourself. So take your sector with you and lead the way for investing in every child. Thank you.